What's up YouTube, I'm Guy. Today on the channel we're going to be taking a look at a watch that I've been wanting to see in person for a long time. What we're talking about is the Sinn 104. I'm not going to delay, I'm going to jump right into the review here, but first a real quick message saying thank you to Chris over at the YouTube channel, The Watch Lounge, for loaning me this watch. If you guys aren't familiar with Chris and his channel, The Watch Lounge, I encourage you to go check him out. There'll be a link in the description of this video to his channel on YouTube. Again, big thanks, Chris. Alright guys, here we have it, the Sinn 104 Pilot's watch. This particular version on the leather strap has a MSRP in the United States of $1,330. That's from the official distributor or reseller for Sinn watches. I want to say it's called watchbuys.com maybe. It actually took me a really long time to figure out where the heck you could even buy Sinn watches from. I looked at Sinn's website and it certainly wasn't clear there, and in talking to the owner of this watch I was like, where the heck do you buy Sinn watches from? He's the one that filled me in. That's, I believe, where he got his. Anyway, I digress. $1,330 for this version on the leather strap. Of course they have a couple of versions on bracelets as well. Prices on the versions wearing one of the two different bracelets goes between like maybe $1,550 to $1,650, right in that ballpark. So, a little bit more affordable if you get it on the leather strap, obviously, as you would expect. Alright, specifications on this watch. We have a sapphire crystal with AR coating. The AR coating and the crystal itself are absolutely outstanding on this watch. We do have a screw-down crown over at the 3 o'clock position, and we are afforded 20 bar or 200 meters of water resistance on this watch. We have an elapsed time bezel. We'll talk about it more, but it is a captive bidirectional bezel. We have a day and date complication over at the 3 o'clock position, and this is running the Sellita SW220 movement. Now, overall basic specs on this watch, as far as the size, we have a 41 millimeter case diameter. It is a small 41 millimeters, and what I mean by that is this watch wears a little bit small. I'll do a wrist shot later on and show you, but while it says 41 millimeters on paper, I feel like it wears a little bit smaller than that, which makes me happy because I prefer smaller watches. 20 millimeter lug width, which is outstanding. I much prefer 20 millimeters to 22 millimeters. An overall thickness of 11.5, so pretty good in terms of thinness, I guess I should say. And a lug-to-lug width from one tip of the case to the other, or of course the watch's wingspan, 47 millimeters. This watch, without the strap, just the head of the watch weighs 73 grams. Overall, it is a really good size, a good proportion. The overall package really is excellent. In terms of size and scale, I really like the way this watch presents, both in the hand and on the wrist. This watch does have a display case back, and in there you can see the Sinn signed rotor on the Sellita SW220. The SW220 is the equivalent of an ETA 2836-2. That's just a day-date version of the ETA 2824-2, or by extension the Sellita SW200. This being the 220, like I said, it has a day and date complication. It's a 26 jewel movement, hand winding and hacking. It is of course automatic winding, 28,800 vibrations per hour with a 38-hour power reserve. Overall, it's a good movement in my experience with, both this watch and other Sellita watches that I have had the pleasure of borrowing and using and reviewing. I don't have a problem with Sellita as the choice instead of an actual ETA movement. I think they're pretty equivalent based on my experience anyway. So this movement, yeah, it's good. When we talk about the value equation though, this is a pretty basic movement. It's not highly regulated. It's not a chronometer. And when we're talking about a watch at $1,300 to $1,600, depending on which variation you get, it is maybe a little bit of a letdown that it's such a basic off-the-shelf movement in a watch that is starting to get a little bit expensive. But I do like the movement. I don't really have any major complaints or problems with it overall. First things first, we'll talk about the case on this watch. With the exception of the case back, the entirety of this case features a high polished finish. And, truth be told, for me, I'd probably prefer some alternating brushed and polished surfaces if it were up to me. This is definitively a tool watch, and I think a completely high polished tool watch isn't the best design choice. Polished surfaces pick up and show scratches much more readily, and if you have a watch that's meant to be used for task as a tool, I think you would just prefer that it was more polished, more brushed or matte finished than polished. Just my personal opinion and taste, but I bet a lot of you guys out there agree with me. You can see the tops of the lugs are of high polish, the sides of the case also entirely high polished. If we come in here a little bit closer and look at the case, we can see that the edges of the lugs in particular have some bevels on the front and the sides. The bevels, I should say, are not super sharp or crisp or refined lines. It's all kind of soft. And, it's good. It's just not really like high end. And the price on this watch is starting to approach, at least on a bracelet, for example, $1,500, $1,600. It's starting to approach that sort of entry luxury tier. And that particular aspect of this watch is not very luxurious. It's just a little bit, soft and, again, undefined or unrefined. I don't hate it. I don't think that it's bad. I just think that it could be nicer and crisper if, we're talking about watches in this price tier. On the opposing side, we can see the signed screw-down crown, which is protected by relatively undersized crown guards. I think they're sized and scaled appropriately for this watch. Overall, it looks good. The grip or texturing or knurling of the crown itself is quite well done. It's good, it's defined, it's easy to operate. Overall, no problems there. Of course, this is a hand wind movement, so getting it out into that first position does let us hand wind. The power reserve up, pulling it out into the first position does let us quick set the day and date complication as needed. Pulling it out to the second position hacks the movement. It allows us to set the time as necessary. The bezel on this watch is interesting. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about it. First of all, an aluminum insert, which I guess is fine. I don't have any major complaints with that. I know a lot of people probably are going to say that approaching the $1,500+ price point, ceramic is really what should be in there. I can't argue with those people that feel that way, but the aluminum has a certain aesthetic look or style to it that I kind of like. Now, what's weird about it is the method in which it works is, if you haven't noticed already, it's reversed from a standard dive bezel. Instead of starting with 5, 10, 15, 20, it starts with 55, 50, 45, 40. This would be like a countdown timer bezel as opposed to an elapsed time bezel. With an elapsed time bezel, you would set the triangle to where your minute hand is, and then every minute it would count up to the 5, 10, 15, 20. That's not what you would do here, though. Here, you would set it to, say, 30, right? And now we have a 30-minute countdown as the minute hand comes around towards the little triangular marker. We would know that 30 minutes has passed. This is not the preferred or ideal method of using an elapsed time bezel for me. Countdown timers need to have an alarm, in my opinion, so that you're notified when the 30 minutes has elapsed. If you forget and then you check, maybe the minute hand has come all the way across here, and now we go, oh shoot, 30 minutes plus another 5 or 10 or 15 minutes has passed. I wasn't paying attention and I missed it. With an elapsed time bezel, you don't usually use those as like a timer. It's something that you just use to keep track of how much time has passed. It's more like a stopwatch. I prefer that method to this method. Again, I just think that without the alarm to notify you exactly when your 30 minutes or 25 minutes or 20 minutes has passed, it's not that useful because it's so easy to forget to check it and check it and check it and make sure. Now, why they went with this, I don't know, because it's technically a pilot's watch and not a dive watch, maybe. Whatever the reasoning, I could get use out of this type of bezel, but it's just not my preferred style of bezel. You may or may not agree with me. Your mileage may vary. Now, in terms of the functionality of the bezel and the bezel assembly, first of all, the clicks are good. It is only 60 clicks, but it is bidirectional. So, as you can see, we can go either direction. And the clicks themselves are very nice and smooth. It does feel very high quality. Overall, I do really like the action of this bezel, despite the fact that it's only 60 instead of 120 clicks. The texture on the edge of the bezel, not the best. It's a short bezel. It's not very aggressively textured or knurled, but it's certainly functional, and it's not so tight that you really need super aggressive texture anyway. You can see there's these little screws here. This is, I guess, what they call a captive bidirectional bezel. So you can't accidentally pop the bezel off. I don't know, I've never accidentally popped a bezel off, so I don't know how useful or helpful that is, but that is what they use here. Overall, yeah, I do like a lot of the overall quality and the functionality of the bezel. I just wish it was a standard elapsed time bezel instead of this reverse or countdown timer. That would be my preference. The crystal on this watch is fabulous. It's got AR coating. It is super crisp and clear, very legible. I love it. Of course, it's sapphire. And the crystal on the back side is also sapphire. Very, very clean and crisp and legible again. I love this crystal. Slightly domed, perhaps, if we come in here and look at it in profile. Not super aggressively domed, but yeah, it is really, really nice. Very well done crystal. The dial and handsets also nicely done, if not somewhat simple. We have no applied markers, no appliques at all. On the dial, it's all printed, but it's very clean and crisp and very legible. I like the matte black finish, just the Sinn logo up at the top, automatic down at the bottom, the day and date complication framed in a white outline or border. Yeah, it's really well done. The handset is of a kind of syringe style hour and minute hand with an arrow pointer on the seconds hand, and everything is filled with a good application of lume. I'll bring in some video of the lume for you guys to check out here. The lume on this watch is very well done, as you would expect once we start approaching the plus $1,000 price point. So yeah, overall, I am impressed with the lume here, and I really like this dial. I think that it kind of reminds me of the Omega Speedmaster dial. Obviously, this isn't a chronograph, and the Speedmaster is, but it has that same kind of vibe or feel. All printed hour markers, a nice intricate second track. Everything is very crisp and clean and clear. Very, very nice presentation overall. It's probably the thing that I like most about this watch is just the presentation of this dial. The last thing to cover here is the strap on the version that I have. It is on this brown leather strap. Kind of looks black in this light. It's a very, very dark brown or borderline black. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'd call it really, really dark chocolate brown. We do have a signed buckle. Decent, nothing, outstanding, but yeah, good buckle. We have contrast stitching and plenty of holes for adjustment. I like the strap. I think it's a nice strap. It's a very thick, durable strap. It is lined on the underside. It is signed with the Sinn logo or branding. 2 keepers, 1 sewn in, 1 floating. It's just, really kind of an expensive watch to come on just a very simple, basic leather strap. $1,330 again for this watch. Yeah, I'd like it to be on maybe a nicer strap, maybe with some sort of deployant or slip clasp, maybe shell Cordovan leather. I mean, this is it's a decent strap. Don't get me wrong. It's not bad, but you can get a Hirsch strap like this for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 bucks, probably in that ballpark. And yeah, that puts all of the rest of the cost or value into the watch head. On the wrist, I don't prefer really thick, heavy leather straps. I like kind of lower profile, thinner straps, so it's pretty bulky on the wrist. Now, that's just personal taste. I can't say that that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. But yeah, for me, this strap is pretty heavy duty, pretty thick, and not my preferred style of leather strap. Speaking of being on the wrist, there it is on my 6 3/4 inch wrist, 41 millimeters in diameter, 47 millimeters lug to lug from the top to the bottom. Yeah, this is a really good sized, perfectly proportioned watch for my wrist size, probably even down to 6.5 inch, and certainly up towards 7.5 and into the 7 3/4 or 8 inch wrist. I think this is going to be a real crowd pleaser in terms of the overall size and scale for most wrist types. It really does fit well. It really does wear well. I can see why so many people consider this to be the ultimate sort of daily wear, maybe the one watch collection watch. It's very nice. It's probably not an outstanding value in terms of price, but not a bad value either. Aesthetically, very, very pleasing. Yeah, the size and scale is outstanding. Quality is quite good. A little bit of, nitpicks here and there. Like, I'd like some more alternating brushed and polished surfaces as opposed to solid polished. The overall definition or the geometry, the little facets and bevels and everything along the sides and edges of the lugs of the case. It doesn't blow me away in terms of how nicely done it is, but there is a whole heck of a lot going here for this watch. I do like it. Alright guys, there we have it, the Sinn 104 Pilot's watch. This is definitely a very cool watch. Again, big thanks to Chris over at the Watch Lounge for loaning this watch to me. I really appreciate it, buddy. And again, all of you guys, go show him a little love and support and subscribe to his channel. It's a small but growing channel, and I know he could really use everyone's support. So, the Sinn 104, what do I think about it? Well, like I said in the review, certainly it is a very high quality watch. I've seen a lot of people say that this could easily be their only watch or their one watch, their certainly everyday watch. I would agree that, yeah, it could probably be that for a lot of people. For myself, there are a few things I didn't like about it. I don't know if I would own it personally, but I can certainly respect that it is a very good watch, and again, very happy to have had the opportunity to share it with you guys on my YouTube channel. So again, thank you, Chris. Well, that's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, down in the description of this and every video I do is a list of ways that you can help support me and my YouTube channel. First of all, following me on my social media accounts, be it Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, would always be helpful. Second of all, if you want to help support me financially on Patreon, I would greatly appreciate it. And a big thanks to the guys that have been supporting me on Patreon over the last 2 years. I do appreciate it, guys. Finally, if you'd like to help support me financially without spending any extra money of your own, if you like anything that I've reviewed and you're thinking about buying it, there's always a link to Amazon down in my description. That link is through my affiliate account, and if you purchase anything that I've reviewed, or anything else for that matter, I get a small commission. Those commissions do add up. Big thanks to everyone that has been using that Amazon affiliate link. I really appreciate it, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today, so until the next one, I'll go ahead and say bye now.